I'm here on my magical thing with Jesse Bransford, artist, associate professor of art at New York University, with work that's been exhibited in many, many different locations, inspired by your engagement with the esoteric. And you're also co-organizer of the Occult Humanities Conference in New York. It sounds amazing. I'd love to go to that one. And you and I, we're going to go and hang out in Britain, tracking down magical pigments, and then like a global event happened, and so we've got that on hold for the moment. But Jesse, it's lovely to have you here, man.
Julian, wow, what a real honor to be here. I'm in great company, and this is just an amazing project. And again, thank you for inviting me.
You're very, very welcome. Please, may we see your magical thing, Jesse?
Okay, the reveal, magical thing, and now we'll get a close-up look, but here we go.
Here we go.
This is my showstone.
One of those. Oh, very nice.
And the story is, my mom actually gave it to me when I was a child. And my mom and my grandmother, it turns out, are they ended up being kind of witchy people. I grew up in the southeastern of the United States, very sort of like, Protestant religious. So it wasn't talked about. But as I started exploring the world and finding sort of interesting places in the city of Atlanta where I grew up, we would go to this place where the punkers hung out. And my mom was the chaperone. And so I would go to the record stores and she would go to the crystal shop. And it turns out she's got a real sort of, she's got a real involvement with holistic medicine, which has grown since we've gotten older. But she bought this for me when I was about 13. And it sat on a little, was essentially a member of the first altar that I had as a child. And it's been there ever since. But about 10 years ago, I bought Frater Akkad's book on crystal gazing. I've got the Yogi publication of it. And it's a great little book. I mean, he's amazing, but it's a great little book, and it does a really good job of setting up your connection to the crystal. Because I would sit and look at it through a candlelight. I'd smoke a joint and do whatever. But I never had an active practice with it. And this is really, Akkad's book was the real beginning of sort of forming a practice around it. He has all these rituals for charging it, engaging with it, bonding with it, and so forth. And a funny aside story is, halfway through the charging process, I had an art historian come to the house. And I was showing him the house and, just being as open as usual. And this person just went straight for the crystal and picked it up and said, "What's this?" And in the book, it says, while you're charging it, it's important that nobody else have any interaction with it. Otherwise, you basically have to start over. And so she picked it up and she's like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, that was a project I've been working on for about a month." So it took a little bit longer to get this thing properly activated. But what's been really interesting about it over time is that I take it everywhere. And I've been doing a lot. In the last 5 or 6 years, I've tried to travel as much as possible. Of course, that's changed for the temporary moment. But this has been with me to some really interesting places. I went with some good friends of mine to Cornwall and made pilgrimages to a lot of the holy wells and sacred stone sites. So this has been with me at the Menonthol. It's been with me at Bosco and Un. It's also been to Bolivia. It's been to the Temple of the Sun and the Temple of the Moon on Lake Titicaca. And those travels, it's interesting. I feel like a lot of the people's things are things that came from travel, and this thing has grown with its travel with me. And that's been pretty fascinating. The next little piece to say, and I'll be done in a second, is the covering that it's in is homemade. There's a section of my studio that I refer to as Jesse's Craft Corner. And in the craft corner, all the magical stuff gets made. And a funny detail, and I was thinking about it this morning, when I made the covering, and that's part of the ritual process of activation that Akkad talks about, I had forgotten that he mentions that a rose-colored piece of silk is ideal. And I had gone home to visit my mom again. My mom is an integral part of my magical practice, apparently. But I got home and I said, "Mom, I need to get a a covering for my crystal ball that you gave me. And she's like, oh, you still have that. She remembered it. She was everything. And she was totally game. So we went on an adventure to find a piece of silk to wrap it in. And I didn't remember that Ak had said pink, but she said, well, what color does it need to be? And I looked at the crystal and I said, the crystal tells me it needs to be pink, but that it also wants to be wrapped in leather. And she's like, oh, well, I know where to get the leather. So she takes me to this leather goods supply store and buys me a full deerskin pelt, which has been enormously useful over the years in various, it shows up in a lot of places. But in this instance, it's the wrapping that I then sewed this piece of pink silk. And the pink silk came from the second part of our adventure where we went out to find it. And I don't know, it was just, when I think about how involved my mom was in this process, it just, I don't know, it makes me feel all warm inside. But yeah, it's a powerful, powerful object. And I've gotten really into the optics, the lensing that you can do. And on my Instagram site, there's an occasional thing that happens, usually when I'm traveling, where I'll take a picture using the phone camera through the lens, and you get these beautiful sort of, polar coordinated distortions. But yeah, this is definitely the object that has seen the most action in my magical life. So here we are.
Jesse, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for introducing us with this magical crystal from the matrilineal line of your family and taking us on that journey with it and the journeys that it's made. Oh, beautiful, man. Yeah, really nice. Really nice. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you, Julian. Cheers.
See you soon. Ciao. Cheers.